And in a way, it does mean perhaps, except that if you translate it as perhaps, you've removed from it one important part of the definition, haven't you? At-takthir. Why? Because we're saying yafuzu al-mujtahidu. Right? Qad yafuzu al-mujtahidu means at-takthir. That most of those who are al-mujtahidun yafuzu.
Succeed.
Right? They will succeed. Do you understand? So can you appreciate why, if you just translate this perhaps al-mujtahidu, the one who struggles will succeed. It's not the same meaning, is it? As saying qad yafuzu al-mujtahidu, which means in most instances al-mujtahidu will succeed. The opposite of that is yakhsiru, from khasara. Yakhsiru al-balidu. Balidu. What does al-balidu mean?
Lazy.
Yeah, the one who's bone idle or a dullard, stupid, right? Al-balidu. Yakhsiru al-balidu, which means, khasira means
Loser.
somebody who loses, right? From khasira. Therefore, here it means the one who is ignorant, yakhsiru, will lose. If you put qad before it, then it has the meaning of?
Perhaps.
Sorry?
Then it would mean more in.
Yeah, it means most
Most
of the people who are balid, they will yakhsiru. If we change al-balidu to al-mujtahidu, then how does it change the meaning? Tahidu. Mujtahidu. How does it change the meaning? Qad yakhsiru al-mujtahidu.
Those who strive will be losers.
But now we're using it for a taqleel.
Very, very little then.
Very little. You understand? So it's about the context. It will be known for the one who uses qad correctly what meaning they're trying to convey, because no sensible, rational person would associate losing with a mujtahid except a few. Do you understand? And no sensible person would associate being successful with a mujtahid except most of them. Right?
No.
So it's not complicated. You just have to remember that qad, depending upon whether it enters upon fi'lun madin or fi'lun mudarin, will convey a different meaning. And there's only 4 to remember. And 2 of those are the same as rubba, that enters upon an ismun, right? Is that clear? That is qad. It's nothing more complicated than that. Then we have as-sinu was-sawfa. What is as-sinu was-sawfa? We've already mentioned this, right? As-sinu was-sawfa is?
So far in the near future.
Right, it's harfu, another term to remember, harfu istiqbalin. Just a point to note, remember when we phrase it like this, harfu istiqbalin, that is what type of construct? It's an idafatun, right? So we're saying a harfun of istiqbal, a future, right? So don't let that worry you. Why is it not harfun istiqbalun? That wouldn't make sense. It's not how you phrase it. You phrase it harfu istiqbalin, right? So both sin and sawfa are harfu istiqbalin. Now what's interesting is this. There are 2 groups or schools of thought or madhahib regarding an-nahu, grammar, right? Ahlul Kufa and Ahlul Basra. Amongst Ahlul Kufa, as-sinu was-sawfa are the same. They're the same. The meaning they convey is the same. Right? And which of the two groups did Ibn Ajrumiyyah follow? Ahlul Kufa. Right? And Ibn Malik, who wrote the famous book Alfiyah to Ibn Malik that you study after Ajrumiyyah, he too followed Ahlul Kufa, and he too had the opinion that they're the same. However, Ahlul Basra, which is the majority, they say no, there's a difference between them. So what therefore is the difference between seen and sawfa? What are the differences? In terms of what they enter upon, does both seen and sawfa enter upon kataba, i.e. fi'lun madin? No. Right, so upon the fi'lun madin, we can only have which one?
Can't have seen.
You can't have a seen, can you?
No.
You can only have
Past tense like that.
right. You can't have any of them.
Alright.
You can't have any on fi'lun madin. Right? So remember, when he said that it's known by qad and sin, it doesn't mean that they can enter upon all of them. It cannot enter upon kataba clearly, because kataba is fal madi. So you can't enter a harful istiqbal that represents the future upon kataba. Right. Can it enter upon fi'lun mudari'in? Yes, both of them can. So we can have seen and sawfa. Seen and we'll place it underneath sawfa. Can it enter upon fi'lu amrin, a command form? Can you say saktub? Can you say sawf aktub? No, they don't. So they only enter upon fi'lun mudari'un. Right? So, if they only enter upon fi'lun mudari'un, therefore, according to Ahlul Basra rather, what is the difference in meaning between seen and sawfa?
Must be a distance in time or something.
Right, it is about the relative time span that we're talking about. Seen is for what they call al-qarib, al-mustaqbal al-qarib, close future, and sawfa is for the far future, the distant future, right? And there are numerous examples in Al-Quran and in the Sunnah that illustrate that point, right? So in Surah Ad-Duha, okay, وَلَا سَوْفَ يُؤْتِيكَ رَبُّكَ فَتَرْضَى, right? So Allah Azza wa Jalla said, وَلَسَوْفَ, and that's interesting, isn't it? Why? We'll explain in a moment. سَوْفَ يُؤْتِيكَ رَبُّكَ. So here Allah Azza wa Jalla is addressing the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or he's being addressed rather, that yu'tika, what does yu'tika mean?
He gave it to you.
Right, he gives to you. Right, it's present tense. Yu'tika, from a'ta. A'ta, remember? Inna a'tainaka al-kawthara. Right? Rabbuka here is the? Yeah, but grammatically it's the?
It's
Rabbuka.
the fa'ilun.
The fa'ilun, you don't need to look so worried, ya Shabazz. You know, we have a fi'lun, we have a fa'ilun. So where's the maf'ulun bihi?
Mustatir.
Think very carefully, ya Alam al-Haq. وَلَسَوْفَ يُعْطِيكَ رَبُّكَ. The ka. Good, ya Shabazz. It's the ka, isn't it? Remember, in that ayah, what's interesting, certain verbs take more than one maf'ulun bihi. I mean, here, there's only one. But the point is, in that ayah, إِنَّا أَعْطَيْنَاكَ الْكَوْثَرَ. Right? We have two. Ka, which is a damirun muttasilun. Damirun muttasilun. Let's see if you remember. Damirun muttasilun here is a maf'ulun bihi. But our predicament is that the maf'ulun bihi must always be mansubun. So, if it must always be mansubun, how do we phrase the kaf huna? How do we phrase it? Do we say its indicator is al-fathatu al-zahiratu ala akhirihi? Do we say it's a fatha upon the end?
No.
Why not?
So that ka is for...
Because that ka is mabaniyun. It's always ka. So we don't say that, do we? We don't say it's mansubun. Note, remember, we don't say the kaf is mansubun because mansubun is a term which is used to apply to an isman only.
Yeah.
Right? So out of the three types of i'rab, it can't be a lafzi, can it? Is it a taqdiri? Do we assume that there's a fatha there?
No.
No. Because that doesn't apply to what type of ismun? One which is mabaniyun. Remember, it doesn't apply to one which is mabaniyun, that's always in that state. It only applies to one which is mu'rabun. Right? You follow? Yeah. So therefore, what type of i'rabun does that kaf represent in order for us to explain that it's in the mansubun state? What type of i'rabun is it? We've done it. Fi. Begin with mim. Fi mahalli. Nasbin. Ya Shabazu fi mahalli. Nasbin. Maf'ulun bihi. We say. Maf'ulun bihi. Remember that the issue of i'rab, that's covered soon in a separate section. But we mention this because we've already done this. So there's no point in forgetting what we've already done. That wouldn't be sensible. This is how we phrase it. We said that kaf is damirun muttasilun mabniyun ala al-fathi. It's mabniyun, it never changes. Mabniyun ala al-fathi fi mahalli nasbin maf'ulun bihi. If you say that sentence a few times, it will become natural. It will do. Right. Anyway, the point is this. We've been diverted slightly. Is the use of sofa here. And what's interesting is that this ayah represents another difference between the sin and the sofa. And that is that the lam, which can have many different functions, right? Here is for lil ibtida, to begin the sentence. But the lam here can only enter upon sofa, not seen.
Okay, lasa.
Right? So, kalla, like the ayah, kalla saya'lamuna. Right? At the beginning of Surah An-Naba. Kalla saya'lamuna, thumma kalla saya'lamun. Right? Kalla saya'lamuna. What does ya'lamu mean? Ya'lamu. He knows. Ya'lamuna means they, plural male, know. And that's marfu'un. And what's alamatu raf'ihi, ya animal haq? Remember from our last lesson, we explained it in great detail. The indicator for being marfu'un is? Think, don't say what you said last week. It's
the wow.
That's what you said last week. I said don't say that. No, it's not. Ithbatun nooni, remember? Ithbatun noon, affirming the noon. Affirming the noon. Right? Because to make it majzooman, what do we do?
Take the noon.
Take the noon. To make it mansuba, what do we do?
Put the harfa there, alif there.
No. And then we always have this discussion, and then I always give you the ayah that we've been reading since we were 4 years old. At the beginning of Surah Al-Baqarah, don't know, we have the same call. فَإِن لَمْ تَفْعَلُوا
وَلَن تَفْعَلُوا.
وَلَن. Lan is harfu nasbin. But how did Allah Azza wa Jalla represent taf'alu preceded by lan? It's by removing the noon, so it's the same, isn't it?
Yeah.
We have that conversation every time, don't we? It's the same, right? It's the same. Which means that the hadful noon, removing the noon, is the indicator for being mansuban and majzuman, which means ithbat noon, affirming the noon, must be the indicator for being marfu'un. And there are numerous other examples, right? Like in the beginning of Surah Rum, غُلِبَتِ الرُّومُ فِي أَدْنَى الْأَرْضِ وَهُمْ مِنْ بَعْدِ غَلَبِهِمْ سَيَغْلِبُونَ. Right? That the Romans have been defeated in a close land by the Persians. وَهُمْ مِنْ بَعْدِ غَلَبِهِمْ, and they will, after their defeat, سَيَغْلِبُونَ. Allah Azza wa Jalla said, سَيَغْلِبُونَ فِي بِضْعِ السِّنِينَ. In a few years, سَيَغْلِبُونَ, they will be victorious again. But sa is mentioned. سَيَغْلِبُونَ. سَيَغْلِبُونَ. Right? But the point is, we could mention numerous instances, but it's not complicated, that seen and sulfur and the distinction between them. Right? Is there anything else we need to mention regarding seen and sulfur? Not that I can think of. Right, which means we're on to ta التأنيث as-Sakinati. What does, you already know what ta التأنيث as-Sakinah means. Right? It means this. Katabat. Right? Can the ta, because what you're saying, that ta, what does katabat mean?
She wrote.
She wrote. Yeah. Right? She. So the ta is the letter ta. Right? That this is what we're saying here. At-ta'neeth, the feminine, the female. Right? That's what it means. At-ta'neeth. Al-mu'annath, female. Right? As-Sakinah. What does as-Sakinah mean? It has a sukoon on it. Right? If they talk about a harfun being as-Sakinah, it means it has a sukoon on it. Right? So that ta'u at-ta'neethi as-Sakinati, which enters upon a fi'lun madin, is what Ibn al-Ajrumiyyah rahimahullah is speaking about. That is an indicator of a fi'lun. Can a ta'u ta'neeth as-Sakinah enter upon fi'lun mudari'in? It can't. Can it?
No, with the sukun. No.
Right? It doesn't. Can it enter upon fi'lu amrin? No. So it's specific to fi'lun madin. Right? Fi'lun madin. Now, of course, you're going to be wondering, the next logical question is, what about all the other ad-dama'iru? Right? That enter upon, for example, the fi'lun madin. Why didn't Ibn Ajrumiyyah mention those? Such as what? Such as katab two. The two. Right? The katab two. Remember, whenever you think of an indicator, you have to be certain it's an indicator that's only applicable to a fi'lun.
Specific, yeah.
Right? You can't have, so for example, a waw. You need to say katabu. Katabu. The waw of al-jama'ah, that isn't. Why?
Because you can apply it to nouns.
Because you can apply it to a noun, good, an ismun.
Yeah.
Right? So we have katabtu, which means
I wrote.
I wrote. You have katab ta, which means katabta,
Single male.
you wrote. Katabti,
Single female.
katabtuma, katabtum, and katabtunna. All of those are called ta'ud damir. Actually, they have more than one name. Ta'u damiri. Ta'u damiri. Right? This is also called ta'ul fa'il. It's also called ta'ul mutaharrika. They have different names. Al-mutaharrika is a common one. Because al-mutaharrika means changing. Right? From taharraka. And you can see why it's called mutaharrika, can't you? Because it changes, doesn't it? Right? You go from a tu to a ta to a ti, and so on and so forth. So it's called al-mutaharrika, which is very common. Right? Now, these are the indicators that we recognize a fi'lun by are just as applicable as Ta'nīth, as-Sakinah. But why didn't Ibn Ajrumiyyah mention that? The ulama, rahimahumullah, explained that the reason being is because Ta'nīth, as-Sakinah, min abrazil alamat. It's from the most apparent indicators. Right? And simplest to understand. And also because, as we mentioned, and we'll continue to do so, this treatise written by Ibn Ajrumiyyah is a summary. It was never intended to be a comprehensive list of all the different possible types and categories. Right? So a ta'nīth as-Sakinah enters upon fi'lun madin, not the fi'lun mudari'un and not the fi'lu amri. Now the only other point that we need to mention, is that clear by the way? This lesson you'll find is not difficult, right Shabazz? Right? This lessons are not difficult. Nothing complicated here. The only other point to note is the fi'lu amrin, that actually we haven't spoken much about. Now, in Tuhfat as-Saniyyah, which is a very famous book explaining Ajrumiyyah, he mentions two indicators of fi'lu amrin, and it's worthwhile mentioning, right? And that is, how do we, well, first of all, what does uktub mean? Uktub.
You write.
Who am I addressing if I say uktub?
You single male.
You single male. How do I address a female? Command form, you write. How do I say it?
Uktuba.
No. It's not that, is it? It's uktub. B. Right? Like the ayah in Surah Maryam, when Maryam alayhi salam went to the tree in order to give birth, and after she did, she was hungry, and what did Allah Azza wa Jalla say? So He told her to shake the tree, right? Kuli washrabi wa qarri ayna. That's what Allah Azza wa Jalla. Kuli. If I address a single male and I tell you eat, what is it? Kul. Right? If I address a single male and say you drink, what is it? Ishrab. If I'm addressing a single female, it's kuli washrabi. So what's the indicator of what's the indicator of being a female being addressed? Ya. And in Arabic it's called Ya ul mukhatibati. Actually, that's not mukhatibati, it's mukhatabati. Very important difference that. Al-mukhatabati. Al-mukhatab means the one who's being addressed. Al-mukhatab. Right? There's a ta marbuta on the end here because we're talking about a female. Right? Al-mukhatabati. And now remembers the other point that we should have mentioned. The reason why he said as-Sakinati is to differentiate between this ta here, which is also ta'nith. The ta marbuta that we refer to it is not a sakina, is it?
No.
Shajaratun, sayaratun, ma'idatun. None of them are sakina, right?
No.
So, ya al-mukhatabati. This ya here, this is what it is referred to in grammar, ya al-mukhatabati. So we know that the fi'lu amrin can be identified by the ya al-mukhatabati. Right? The other point to note is there's another indicator, and this one is not very common. If we go back to uktub, which means uktub means you write. We have another indicator of fi'lu amrin called noon at-tawqid. Right? The noon at-tawqid, which is a noon that is on the end, and it has the effect of emphasis. Uktubanna. It becomes uktubanna. So what's the difference between saying uktub and uktubanna?
Same. A bit emphasis.
It's for emphasis. So if I tell you, I address you, Ya Shabaz, and I say uktub, it means you write. If I say uktubanna, that means you definitely, certainly write. Right? So those are the only other 2 points which some of those who explained al-Ajrumiyyah mention regarding this section. But it's deliberately kept concise and simplified because a lot of these issues are covered later on in the book in greater detail. But because we have already spoken about some of them in our previous lessons, it was prudent, relevant to mention them here. Right? Is that clear? Right.